We've been home for almost 2 months now. It's the end of January. We've talked since we got home about doing a few videos on each one of our kits. And so here we are. I'm about to show you my 2022 through hike pack, all the stuff I have in it. The 5 of us hiked all of the trail north of Parisburg, Virginia. And when we got to Parisburg, we discovered that Texas Pete had a stress fracture in his left leg. So Texas Pete and I got off trail and followed North Star, Ninja Squirrel, and Fish to Springer. So what I'm going to show you is what my kit looked like walking into Parisburg about October 15th. And then I did get back on trail for about a week around the Smokies and Fontana. And so some of what I'm carrying here too is from that stretch. So the weather was turning cold and we were headed south. We had a lot of miles behind us, and so we knew what we needed and what we didn't. First is what I'm wearing. So this is what I was wearing on the trail. I have a Icebreaker wool t-shirt, and I have a pair of Railrider's pants, which I actually preferred hiking in shorts, but I wasn't real comfortable being in shorts full time on the trail in November. So I had a pair of pants with me. I'm wearing darn tough socks, and I hiked in Brooks Cascadia 16s, maybe they were 13s, whatever the most recent iteration of those shoes were. I did carry a hat, and I have some other wear gear that I'll show as I unpack. So here we go. I'll start with my side pockets. Well, we all carried a water bottle and a Sawyer squeeze. A lot of times there were some times on the trail in like Pennsylvania where I was carrying 4 quarts. I'd have most of them empty, but in case we needed to carry to a campsite, there were times when I was carrying a gallon of water or sometimes more. That was rare. We also, North Star and I both carried a CNOC bag. So this is the 2-liter CNOC bag. So we could haul a lot of water if we needed, but we really weren't ever carrying more than about a quart, sometimes 2. I'll keep doing my mesh here. I did have this, this is a Wool-X mid-weight merino wool long sleeve shirt, and I had this on quick draw a lot of times. And when the weather got cold, I pretty much just lived in this shirt and the one I'm wearing. So this was my warm layer. I didn't carry a fleece. I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get into my pack. So it was wool shirt, wool long sleeve base layer, and then puffy and rain gear. I have my trowel and my toilet paper bag. So that's the 11th essential. And then my spoon lived on quick draw in my mesh. So the spoon was here, and then I had a mug. We all carried a mug. It's just an Ole Camp, probably about 700 milliliters, 24 ounces. A mug for eating and drinking. So that was our eat kit. Those were on the outside. I had a gear repair kit. I may dive into this a little more later. This wasn't very big. This is just a ZPacks rucksack, but I carried things like zip ties, sewing needle. I used tenacious tape several times to patch jackets or sleeping pads. I have a little tube of like sleeping pad glue in here. That's all I can remember from this kit that I really needed. I had some Velcro straps I didn't ever use. But this is one of those things I think as a dad, I just like needed to have this along so that if anything went wrong with gear, I could help. There's a roll of Dyneema repair tape in here also that we used on our stuff sacks. And then actually in Shenandoah, a limb fell on the boys' triplex, and so we had to patch that. And I think that's all I have on the outside. Let's see, both those pockets are empty. Yep, that's empty. All right, let's go in. This pack weighs about 17 pounds. I weighed my pack and my through pack, and so this is probably close to 2 pounds. I'd say my pack right now is right at 15 or 16 with no water or food. There is a fuel can in here. So I had a food bag, and this was usually pretty full. I carried two hanks of bear line that were 50 feet each. This is Dyneema cord. I got this at Dutch Wear Gear. And when we would resupply for 3 days, when you resupply 5 people for 3 days, you're carrying essentially what is 15 days of food for a single hiker. And so coming out of towns, coming out of resupplies, we would be carrying a lot of food. And I only once hung 3 different lines, and then I kind of settled into just hanging 2 most of the time. But we really required 2 lines almost all the time. And so I had two hanks of bare line so that I could hang 2, and we did that most every night. When we got empty bags, I could get it down to just 1 line, but I carried a lot of line, and that came in handy. And then this is just a ZPacks Food Bag. North Star and I had ZPacks bags. I wish ZPacks would make more colors than this. Every thru hiker on the trail, or half of them, seriously, have all the same looking food bags. Okay, I had what I call my warm bag, so that whenever I got cold, I would pull out, this is a Sea to Summit, kind of a dry sack. I had fingerless gloves. These are -33 merino wool fingerless gloves. I like fingerless. Some people hate that, but I had a pair of gloves. I do like wool gloves because they're warm even when they're wet, and so I carry those. I had a buff, and then for most of the time, this is a -33 beanie, and this was on quick draw most of the time. And then I have a Montbell 900 fill half zip Anorak. So this is my puffy. And I didn't really hike in this much. Frankly, when I'm walking, I'm pretty warm. This was usually what I was wearing when we stopped. So when the weather got cold, I had this ready to pull out pretty quick so that I could, put it on while my body heat was still cranking and trap some heat. So that was my warm bag, and then it all stayed in that Sea to Summit stuff sack. Fish and I swapped off carrying the jet boil. He carried it for most of the time that he and I were on the trail together. But I don't know. We probably split half and half. So this is just the standard jet boil. This is a jet boil Sumo. It's like 1.5 liter, 1.8 liter kettle, and we would boil at least one of these, but probably 2 of these every time we stopped for a meal, like breakfast and dinner. So that's either for hot drinks or rehydrating food, making grits and oatmeal. So this was in use most every day. We started with a kettle and a pocket rocket, but we switched to the Sumo just because it's more compact and it boils water significantly faster. It saved us a lot of time in the morning. So we carried this from Hamburg, Pennsylvania to Springer. Okay, next. Okay, I have this first aid kit. I'm not going to dig too deep into here. Some of this too is stuff I would not carry as a single hiker, but I carried a lot of this just because I was the dad. There is a probably 3-ounce can of BioFreeze gel in here, and then there's a lot of just over-the-counter drugs, ibuprofen. There's laxatives. I have some Benadryl in here and Pepto-Bismol. There are some Band-Aids. I have a couple Tegaderm patches in here. In the spring, I carried sting sticks. I also carried sunscreen in here for a little while. We didn't use sunscreen as much as we thought we would, in preference of hats. I'll tell you what I used most though, and it didn't stay in here. I think you're gonna see it later. It's just 3 things. It was Neosporin and Leukotape, and then I bought a roll of, it was like foam Next Care blister prevention tape. I bought that in Great Barrington, probably less than 300 miles into our hike. We flip-flopped, and I carried the roll with me the entire way, and I used almost all of it. I'll show it to you here in a second. So to me, that was the necessary things in the first aid kit. Sting sticks for the kids. I mean, it's nice to have something to do when a bee hits. Leukotape and cushion tape for blisters. And then really Leukotape works as a good Band-Aid. And then we also had Neosporin on quick draw. Okay, next is, we're getting down into the sleep kit here. I have a Neo Air X Lite, and for a long time I slept on a Nemo switchback, which I really did like. That surprised me. And I traded the I traded the switchback out for this when the weather got cold. So this was kind of my winter pad. It's way more comfortable and warmer, but it's heavy and it takes forever to blow up. So, you know, it cuts both ways. I think when Texas Pete and Fish and I hit the trail this spring and summer, I'll probably go back to the switchback. It's just so easy. So this was my sleeping pad for probably half the trail. The first half I had this, and as we started to cut weight, I switched out for something a little bit lighter, that switchback. Okay, I carried, for my rain gear, I carried a packa. The packa is made in Ellijay, Georgia, not very far from us. And I got one of these for each of the boys and me. And so this covers your pack and doubles as sleeved rain gear. So I liked this. It is a little heavy. What I really enjoyed was being able to put it on my pack and put the hood on and wear it almost like a cape while the rain wasn't too bad, because if you zip this up, it's just a big trash bag, like almost every piece of rain gear is on the AT. And so you get just as wet wearing a packa zipped up as you do just getting rained on. So this was for pack protection. It was also good for wind protection. It is very warm for, I mean, it's a non-breathable layer. So if I put my t-shirt, my long sleeve wool X, my puffy, and my packa on, it knocked the cold out. And so this was a little heavy. I used it as a pillow, but it did its job, and I hiked with it pretty much the entire trail. I did in the Smokies wear a proper rain jacket, but that was more preference at that point. I think the packa would have worked great. So I give the packa 4 stars. This is one of the 2 ZPacks triplexes. This has 8 stakes in it, and then we would use a set of trekking poles like Jasper, Ninja Squirrel, and North Star were carrying trekking poles. So this was one of our 2 triplex tents. Jasper carried the other one. And then I think the last thing I have in this pack is my kind of my dry bag. This is where all my sleeping gear and dry things stayed. So let's see, I have a Western Mountaineering 20-degree ultralight bag. I've had this sleeping bag for 20 years and it is awesome. You know, by today's trail standards, it's a little on the heavy side, but it's because stuff on the trail weighs nothing anymore. So this was a great sleeping bag, and we stayed warm even in some single-digit temperatures in that 20-degree bag. I was also wearing at the same time a puffy. I would sleep in a puffy and that sleeping bag. And then down in here too, I have a Nemo pillow. This was like a little piece of luxury gear. And then I carried a pair of shorts also. And then what I don't have in here is an extra pair of socks. I carried a second pair of Darn Tough socks, but this is just a kind of a short pair of running shorts with a liner in it. And so that was my sleeping in this, or, you know, on days we got soaking wet, we could peel off our wet layers and I could change into something dry. So, and then this is a Sea to Summit pump sack. We started with Sea to Summit pads, and so I brought this pump sack to blow those up. But then by the end of the trail, we didn't have any Sea to Summit pads, but this was a good size for all my stuff to live in. And then I have the Osprey Exos 58. This is a great pack. It's relatively lightweight and it's got a proper frame on it. And so there were times early on when I was carrying probably close to 40 pounds, and then it wasn't unheard of for me coming out of town to be more like in the low 30s. And this just carried the weight so much better than some other packs I tried. I was hopeful I could hike with a ZPacks arc haul, but it just wouldn't do the weight. And then I carried a Garmin InReach, and I think that's about it for the pack. Okay, next is the thru pack. I carried this for most of the trail. I started with a ZPacks chest pack, and it just bounced and was a little uncomfortable. The thru pack proved the thing I needed. So I'm just gonna, this was fun. This was opening a time capsule. So I have my iPhone in here, and then on the inside, I was talking earlier about these 2 rolls of tape. There's a roll of Leuco tape. That's probably our second roll. And then there's a roll of this foam next care tape. So oftentimes for a blister or a hot spot, or even Jasper had an infected toe for a long time, I would wrap this foam tape around and then cover it with Leuco tape, because Leuco tape will stay on for a week. So these 2 things and Neosporin did most of what we need for first aid. I had some Carmex for the cold weather for chapstick, and I had ibuprofen on quick draw. 2 other necessities. There's a gravity feed coupler for the C-Knock and the Sawyer, so that you can gravity feed into a smart water bottle. I had my wallet. I didn't carry much in here except a little bit of cash, a driver's license, and a credit card. I have a comb and a lighter. I found this $20 bill, which was fun. So that probably should have been living in my wallet, but okay, going into the Smokies, or maybe a little earlier, maybe I bought this in Hot Springs. I stopped and bought some potable aqua. Our Sawyers were freezing. Like, it's just hard to keep track of 5 Sawyers. And so, and then when it gets into like single digits, you don't even want to run water through your Sawyer. So I bought this potable aqua so that we could purify water without using the Sawyer, because freezing that thing will ruin it. I have a carabiner. I have another one on my pack over here. I use this for hanging bear bags, and they just come in handy. I have a little thing of Tiger Balm. This was also some good first aid to have on quick draw. And I have 5 quarters, which I'm sure is left over from a laundry run or something. So that was it. This stayed on my body for most of the hike. I think if I had to change the kit at all, it would only be for weather. Obviously, 1,500 miles, you really get rid of a lot of stuff you don't need. And I did start, all 5 of us started with a lot of things that it turns out we didn't really need in the first place. I got rid of a pair of Crocs. I started with I carried a Frisbee for 10 days that we never threw. So we left that at RPH shelter. I had an extra change of clothes, like a short sleeve shirt and an extra pair of shorts that I got rid of. I had a pair of sleep socks that I sent home. So you just start to learn what is extra. I do think in the summer, when Texas Pete and I go back to finish, I'll probably have a little bit lighter weight quilt. But I think other than that, we're gonna have pretty much the same kit we had. It works well. So that's it. That's my 2022 thru hike gear unboxing. Is that an unboxing? Unpacking.